Let's start at the parliamentary ad hoc committee meeting held to deal with the allegations made by Lieutenant General Madlanga Commission into potential collusion between the police and criminal syndicates throughout South Africa. Now, it was an extraordinary day. Largely, not a long day, not a lot of information, but what was extraordinary was the witness. Testifying was the former aide to the former sort of current resting at home police ministerish kind of guy, Senzo Mkhunu, who, thanks to your and my tax money, is sitting at home in Durban. Maybe he's at the beach right now. Maybe he's playing golf with Shabir Sheikh. I don't know. But the point is that we kind of have two police ministers, and he was the one before the other one. You get the picture. Senzo Mkhunu, who really testified at the commission, and he wasn't great. Well. Nothing prepared us for the testimony of his aide, Cedric Nkabinda, who came there woefully unprepared. He had submitted an affidavit to the committee that, by his own admission, he had thumb-sucked the information in his own affidavit. Does this guy not understand that this is a legal process and whatever you write down will be tested? And if you lie in that, you've committed perjury, which is a crime. I know in South Africa, we're not hell of a keen on doing anything about criminality, but you do have some of the most eminent politicians in the country, and lying to them under oath is not a good look in front of the country and all the cameras. But Mr. Nkabinda was kind of inventing facts. It was pretty crazy. And then admitting that he invented facts. And it was a mess. One by one, the parliamentarians, some of them themselves of dodgy character, but hey, let's set that aside for a minute. They were sitting there in sheer disbelief as this guy kind of admitted to lying in his affidavit. It was crazy. Eventually, they decided just to scrap his testimony. And it was almost universal in condemning his case. Now, there's two things that come out of this. Number one is that while everybody in Parliament was saying this is wholly unprofessional and unacceptable, all except for one voice, and this is becoming a familiar refrain, and that is Ashley Sauls from the Patriotic Alliance. Now, we've got to remember that Patriotic Alliance loves Cyril Ramaphosa. Gayton McKenzie, even at an event that we organized, said how much he loves Cyril Ramaphosa. Senzo Mkhunu was Cyril Ramaphosa's man. So it goes kind of like step by step. You can understand that Ashley Sauls is there to try and protect the interests of Cyril Ramaphosa and make him not look too bad, and by extension, make Senzo Mkhunu not look too bad. And Ashley Sauls, who has been quite effective at other times, except when it comes to these moments, stepped in to defend Mr. Nkabinda by saying, we all make mistakes. And we remember that even General Mkhwanazi had to retract parts of his affidavit. So let's not be so harsh. Let's not say that this guy was lying. Let's give him another chance, because he's clearly in the faction that the Patriotic Alliance likes. So doing his best, once again, we remember how he was sort of almost sickeningly appealing to Senzo Mkhunu, saying, you did the right thing when you disbanded the political killings task team. Well done. What a great man you are. It's a common refrain. Clearly, the Patriotic Alliance have got every reason, let's not forget, to try and get the whole political killings task team finding out of that, because their deputy leader was found at Kat Matlala's house when they went to arrest him. So the more they can get the people they want to stop the work of the political killings task team, the better. So unsurprisingly, that Ashley Sauls was trying to protect Nkabinda as he was basically lying on his affidavit. What we must remember that we heard from Senzo Mkhunu when he sat before this committee, how he explained, this is a guy who had presidential ambitions, He explained how wonderfully qualified Nkabinda was for the role, because there have been question marks about this guy from the word go. And if this is the judgment of Senzo Mchunu, I think we may have dodged a bullet by, getting rid of this guy, if we've got rid of him. Because let's not forget that the ANC love flawed humans. They like people that broke the law. We had a former president that was, had broken the law long before he even became leader of the party. We have a current president who has got a case to answer, in Pala Pala. So it wouldn't be surprising if this is almost like a prerequisite for Senzo Mchunu to rise up the ranks. But I just don't think he's got the personality or the charisma to do it, thank God. But, we've seen stranger things happen in South Africa. But in any case, back to that parliamentary meeting, it was a mess, as Nkabinda's affidavit was pure fantasy, and eventually they chased him away. We'll have to see what happens to him next. Turning our attention to the Madlanga Commission, where, look, like how many different ways can we say that the ANC and EFF-run Ekurhuleni is just a pit of vipers? It's just a place where criminality rules. It's a miracle that any waste gets collected, and it's a miracle if you live in Ekurhuleni, I feel for you, my brother. I know that you are salt of the earth people, but my Lord, you should be thankful every time water runs through a pipe, because that city seems to have just been set up as a criminal organization. We heard this time from Xolani Nziza, who's been testifying for the last 2 days. And there clearly are some people that were horrified by what they had to work amongst. And what was discussed was this amateurish agreement that had been drafted that basically gave almost the keys to the city, certainly to the city's vaults, to Kat Matlala. An agreement whereby his companies had the job of protecting the mayor, you name it. Every tender you can imagine was being run by Kat Matlala, and this agreement was set up. And the commissioners eventually had enough. They said, there is no ways a legal person could have drafted such an amateurish document. These were the words of Sisi Baloy, who even questioned whether whoever had drafted these agreements were legally trained. Well, apparently the signatories on that are Advocate Njabulo Zulu and Attorney Thabo Makwiting, and they claim to have never written the document, even though their signatures appear on the document. So either there's fraud or people trying to cover their own backsides. But either way, nothing would surprise us about Ekurhuleni. One of the fun things was that Kat Matlala got his vehicles registered there, said he's donated these vehicles to the city of Ekurhuleni and later undonated them. Obviously, by that stage, money must have changed hands, but he never really relinquished control of these vehicles. They were never really donated in the first place. Much like when your child uses your car, you may have donated it to him, but you haven't given it to him, and then you undonate it if it does arrive the next morning. That's clearly the sort of game here. But we hear that obviously you can't run these criminal syndicates unless you've got political approval, political cover. Now, the recently retired Imogen Mshazi, who was the city manager, a very, very strange woman who has protected Julius Mkhwanazi, the kingpin of inside the Ekurhuleni Metro Police. She has protected him at every step. The other people that seem to have been involved in running interference for these crime syndicates, head of legal services Kemi Bahari and HR boss Linda Kasheka. These are the people that work inside the Ekurhuleni city that were protecting the criminal syndicates, all reporting to their political seniors in the ANC and the EFF. Please remember that when you vote again. So that was what came out at the Madlanga Commission. It would be great if they moved on to things that matter more, like when do we get to the fact that senior politicians must have known about this. The president's name keeps on coming up. He needs to appear before the Madlanga Commission. Otherwise, this commission runs the risk of becoming a bit like the Zondo Commission, where you're even going to hear, from some clerk that delivered a document, and the whole thing turns into rubbish, and eventually this gives the NPA reasons to never ever do anything about the findings of these commissions. We understand that Ekurhuleni is dirty, lay some charges, let's get to court for that, but the commission should hear from the big fish. Let's get Kat Matlala in front of the commission. Let's get Katiso Molefe. Remember Hangwani Maumela? President Ramaphosa, I don't know him. Okay, I do know him. Okay, I don't know where he lives. Okay, I've been in his house. That guy. Let's get them in front of the commission. Let's get the president in front of the commission. Let's hear from these people so that we can get this thing over and done and criminal proceedings can start. We remember that the president put a tight deadline on it. Time's running out. Let's move on from Ekurhuleni. It's dirty. What more do we want to hear? Okay. I want to just touch on our G20 Jamboree, which takes place in the coming week or so here in Johannesburg. Well, it did get us a few streets cleaned. About half of our street lights work. I've driven on the routes that these dignitaries are going to go on. And oh my Lord, if that's cleaning up, then we're not going to leave a great impression. But on the positive side, we don't have to leave such a great impression because most of the people that matter have decided not to come. Right? Have you ever arranged a party, you set it up, you've got a guest list, and nobody pitches up? This is what it feels like. You have to be like the worst host, the most unpopular person when you send out invitations for a year. Everybody says, yes, I'll be there. And at the last minute, they decide not to come. Well, quite clearly, people are seeing this for what it is. Right? This is a wannabe country that shouldn't be in the G20, trying to show that they are relevant when they are not. And we've seen one by one countries just fall off the map. Now, originally, there was this fractious relationship between Donald Trump and the Republic of South Africa, especially Cyril Ramaphosa. He said that his deputy was going to attend. Then he said last week, nobody from the US is coming. Okay, now we understand that that may have influenced the decision of some people. But now we hear that Xi Jinping, this was Cyril Ramaphosa's counterweight to the West. China, who are going to love us and they're going to support us through thick and thin. Well, he's not coming. He joins the leader of Argentina, the leader of Mexico. The leader of Russia can't come, obviously. So we are down to about, at best, 15 people, but never despair. Cyril Ramaphosa's got a solution. He's invited about 50 heads of states of other bullshit countries that are in our category, right? Countries that also shouldn't be here. Look, they're going to arrive because they're desperate to be seen. So you can have like your B division party and basically eat all the food. But, South Africa's coming out party, which is G20 thing was meant to be, is going to be an unmitigated flop, right? It was meant to be about legitimizing South Africa as a serious player. The proof that we belong in the Premier League of countries, the G20. This despite the fact that everybody knows that our children drown in pit latrines. We know that our politicians steal COVID money. We know that right as we speak, we've got people looting our public hospitals and the government is silent, a country that has got no economic growth. We shouldn't be anywhere near the G20 and the whole world knows it, but we are trying to act like we belong. Right? This is going to be a PR disaster, but luckily it'll be a short, sharp one because the world will move on to more weighty matters. We'll get a few sympathetic countries from Europe that still feel bad about colonialism. They'll come down, be here for 2 days, and there'll be a race to the airport. The Guptas better clear Waterkloof Airport because I've got a feeling we're going to see a lot of jets taking off about as quickly as humanly possible. And the sooner that this G20 debacle is behind us, the better. And then perhaps our friend Dada Marrero, Mayor of Johannesburg, and the Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi can go back to doing nothing. suits them better. They were better when they were doing nothing. We were more used to it that way, and we will plant trees where the roads used to be in those wonderful locations called potholes, and we'll go back to life as it was before we got excited about the potential of the G20. That's all from us here on the Political Insider. Thanks so much for joining us. Keep watching. Subscribe to the channel. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.